Good evening to another McMuscles Midnight Massacre Chapter 2.
Good evening to?
Good evening to. Good evening to McMuscles Midnight Massacre 2. I don't know, am I being possessed?
I don't know.
Right now?
I would probably say something similar. So
Yeah, no, probably. It's fine. It's not all going to be gold. Speaking of not all going to be gold, the Exorcist franchise. When I say that, I mean the franchise as a whole. Dude, there's lots of stuff about the Exorcist franchise. We watched the show together.
Yeah.
You must have watched the first movie at some point.
Yes.
There's so many more fucked up things about it. They remade the same movie twice with different directors, but it's the same movie, but with the same actors. Oh. It's amazing. Okay. We're not talking about that
Why
today.
don't you do a what happens about it?
I was actually thinking about it because it's so fucking weird.
Okay.
Anyway, but today we're talking about Exorcist 3. I just call it Exorcist 3. Sometimes they have subtitles, but this did not. Yeah. So why the Exorcist 3? Well, what are we supposed to say about Exorcist 1?
Yeah,
you know?
that hasn't already been said a billion times.
2 is just this weird, like, LSD acid trip. It's not all that scary or coherent. But I heard 3 is based on the actual book by the author of The Exorcist, the sequel book. It's called Legion, and it just got spun off into an Exorcist 3. And this was written and directed by the author of The Exorcist. You can't get more authentic than this in terms of staying close enough to the source. He hated the second movie. He had nothing to do with it. So he's like, yeah, no, this isn't canon. That shit's stupid. So this is the real... I think it's called Exorcist 3, the sequel to The Exorcist. I think it's
I like it when there's drama. Like, I like it when there's, like, when Stephen King talks hot mess about stuff.
Which
or, like,
he does.
You know, often. Rarely. But,
often back then he did.
You know, I like it. And then he goes so far as to be like, you know what? Just let me do it.
Yeah.
Just let me do it. You know, so.
So this is kind of like that.
Yeah.
So, Exorcist 3, is kind of like a weird sequel to the first one where, like, again, like I said, doesn't really, you know, have any links to the second one as far as I, like, know. But it's maybe like 10, 15 years later after Exorcist 1, and basically is like, oh, that priest that died at the end of Exorcist 1, he fell down the stairs, that was a tragic moment for this city or whatever. And it seems that the demon of the first movie, Pazuzu, seemingly has possessed somebody else in this town, and the investigator, this old investigator that we're like, I don't know about this guy.
Yeah,
seems a little old.
I'm gonna say something about this guy.
Oh, we'll get to it in a second.
I'll tell you after. I'll tell you guys later.
So he is basically like clued into like, yeah, there's a serial killer on the loose, and there's these really weird murders, and he gets honed in on this like I guess hospital, insane asylum. It seemed like both. There was like a weird psych ward, of course, with 1990s depictions of what a psych ward looks like.
No, but what wasn't he there because of his priest friend?
Yeah, like a murder. Then his murder. He has a priest friend who's unrelated to most of the other like Exorcist things.
Confusing.
It kind of was at first, but basically
like, he's admitted the whole time.
He's admitted to this hospital, his friend, and then when he goes to visit his friend again, or he hears on the phone, he's like, "Yeah, your friend just got murdered in the most spectacular way." And that's the moment where the movie, I'm like, ooh, oh, hello.
Yeah, because that's when it became interesting, but it took like a really long time to get there. And the stuff with the Gemini killer thing, that was separate. Like, that had already happened. Like, that person was already executed. Like,
yeah, so there's this serial killer that has been killing people elsewhere within the city with all these other different, like, elaborate deaths, like to men, women, children.
Yeah, but he had an MO, like he cut off a finger and he did a thing.
Yeah, but it seems like maybe that was maybe a possession of a different person that's outside this hospital. Regardless, it's basically kind of like a whodunit of trying to hone down on. It was someone within this hospital, I think. Maybe it's this weird patient that they have in that like cage over there.
Look at me! Look at me! And tell me what you see.
I see a man who looks like Damien Karras.
And yeah, it's like barely like a priest is not the focal point of this movie. It's about this investigator who's played by George C. Scott, who was in a lot of big movies in like the 70s and 60s and
that's what I would say about him. Like, I was watching this Mysterio and I'm like, I know this gruff man who's unnecessarily screaming all the time.
That's true.
And then I'm like, I looked it up, obviously, because I'm a slut for fucking IMDb. And he was in a movie called The Changeling, and I think it was in the 70s, this movie. Maybe
I think it was early 80s,
really,
late
really
70s,
early.
yeah.
And we had watched that whole movie on Shudder, like, months ago. And I liked that movie. Let me just tell you. I thought that, like, go watch that fucking movie.
I thought that movie was a bit slow.
No, it was slow as all hell.
Okay.
But he was a bit younger. He was, like, and, like, the opening scene is such a hilarious how his, like, whole family dies.
Yeah, it was funny.
And there
We're getting a little off track.
Anyways, this is now turned into a review of The Changeling. But he acts the same. He's just like this.
Yeah.
He's just like, he's a little thicker. He's a little older, and he's a lot louder. Like,
he reminded me a lot of the investigator who's like very the same like girth and age that's in Heavy Rain. He plays this investigator. That's like a heavy set.
It's
like
an archetype.
It is.
You know what I mean?
But as like
he should have retired last year.
As a flat-foot detective that actually goes to crime scenes, I was kind of like, what would this guy be doing? He's just more like a chief or like guy that stays at the station.
Yeah, kind of.
It just felt a little off because that's the basic setup of the movie where he's trying to like track down the killer / understand the nature of it. Like, how are you able to kill that person in that way?
Yeah.
I don't even want to talk about those deaths, but this movie has like 1 or 2 like murders where you're like, whoa, that's messed up. Like someone sat down and thought about that. How can my movie or like my book have these really like elaborate murders that just seem like impressive almost?
Yeah.
Like I like movies like Seven or like Fight Club that have like this kind of really gritty sort of like macabre way of murdering people. Hannibal, obviously. So yeah, going into that, there's some things I dislike. Like it was pretty slow for the good first half of it, I'd say. The main character, even though he's a good actor, he's screaming a lot, like you said.
He's always like unnecessarily like slamming the phone and yelling, like
and it'll be in the middle of like where he's normal, where someone will be like, "Yeah, I don't know when he'll be coming back." He's like, "Okay, so you really don't know?" And they're like, "No, what do you mean you don't know?" I'm like yeah, okay, calm down.
You're like
I know there's a stressful job.
The Gemini symbol, the twins.
That was 15 years ago.
Go ahead, Lieutenant.
Temple, why are you encouraging this?
Shut your mouth!
No. I wasn't a fan of that.
Yeah. It took me aback when it happened too.
Every time, multiple times.
Aside from that, what were some other things that we were kind of like, on?
Basically what we said, and also that it might not have been as scary as the first movie.
I mean, nothing. That's one thing I actually do like about it. Like, we can't top the first movie in terms of, like, scariness and stuff. Yeah. So it wasn't, as scary. There's a really good jump scare, like, in towards the back half of the movie that I saw a clip of on YouTube. It says, like, best jump scare ever. And it's pretty good. I mean, maybe at the time, 1990, that's probably pretty good.
It's like a pretty classic, but it was good.
Yeah. So there's that. Aside from that, there's just kind of a general sense of like tension and dread, but not inherently terrifying or anything.
No.
But, well, in terms of what we liked, I mean, I really liked the movie's dialogue. It really felt like a writer wrote it in the sense of like a novel writer wrote it. Like, it's very wordy. People are overly clever. They say that like everyone's dialogue is kind of snappy. And it was just kind of interesting. It kept things kind of moving. If its writing was like really, really dull, that would have like killed it.
Yeah, that would have not been a good time.
There's that. It's just a kitty.
It's scary.
It's scary, Exorcist. So the dialogue was like really strong for me. There was like lots of scenes of tension where he's like, again, towards the the latter half of the movie, he was trying to figure things out. There's some weird, freaky things that would happen in the background, but the movie wouldn't pay a lot of attention to it. It was weird.
Yeah.
A bit in a good way.
Are you trying to avoid spoilers for a movie from 1990? Baby, I see you. You try not to talk about in the room with the person, with the thing.
Yeah, no, it's just because, like, since it is kind of slow.
I guess it was new to us, so we had never seen it, so maybe a lot of other people
since it is kind of slow, these highlights are, like, how these people got killed. I'm like, maybe I want to hide that away, but it's pretty interesting. There was an exorcism scene in the end of the movie, because I had read that the director did not have that in his book. He didn't want it in the movie, and then the movie studio pressured him.
They're like...
It's called The Exorcist.
Which is called The Exorcist. You're gonna have to put one in there.
And he's like, fine, and they do a really quick exorcism.
Yeah, that I did like because.
But they do it effectively.
No, it was well done. And the thing is, when it's a movie primarily about exorcisms, as there are many of these nowadays,
A lot.
sometimes they will drag just one scene on. It's okay to like go and come back to it, but like if you're spending 30 minutes on one exorcism, there's only like so much that could be done, you know, like
And like certain exorcisms last in movies days.
Yeah,
and
it's
you're
a
just
little
like,
much.
You know.
But this one was good. It was like he was like, okay, I gotta include it, you know.
Tell
Gotta
his
get
demon
me.
to wrap it up.
Yeah, like snappy.
So there's some cool effects, some neat things happen, and it's like 5 minutes long, maybe.
Yeah, no, it's not.
Because one of the actors in this movie is Brad Dourif.
Yeah.
A classic voice now of Chucky from Child's Play. And, of course, Grima Wormtongue from Lord of the Rings. So it's nice seeing him and not, like...
Yeah,
you know,
super over-the-top makeup.
Yeah.
Or not.
Now, that being
Or
said,
at all.
he's a little over the top in this, but just the right amount.
Just the right amount.
It didn't get too hokey, but basically he plays like this patient that I guess Pazuzu might be possessing. It's still kind of unclear. And he does tune up the scenery. In fact, George C. Scott over here just kind of basically stares at him, just lets him go off on his cutting his promos. And I was just like, wow, these scenes are really good. Like, he's doing a great job with this. Like, you know, Brad Dourif has been like in movies consistently over the years. Like, he's always in like one thing here, one thing there, every so often. So it was nice seeing him in something where it's like it plays to his strengths, but also is not what I expected. He just does it in an interesting way. So I thought that was, you know, pretty good. It's okay.
I'm freaking out.
It's all right. We heard it. There was a bump.
Cat is possessed.
I don't know if it picked up on the camera, but there was a bump over there, so it could have been anything. Could have even been The Exorcist, but that's not actually the scary part of it. It could be Pazuzu. So what like, I know I kind of liked this a lot more than you did, but what do you feel about it overall, though?
I'm not gonna say it was bad. Would I watch it again? Probably not.
I'd actually maybe watch it again in a couple of years, just to like, I don't know. I
wasn't on my phone, but I wasn't paying as much attention. I will tell you this, guys, right now. So that's why I'm a little quiet, because I'm not gonna like.
No. You weren't even on your phone.
No, I wasn't.
No, you weren't on your phone. You were actually falling asleep, which is fine.
Oh yeah,
it's gonna happen.
It was a little long.
We both fell asleep during Blade Runner 2049.
We still have to watch the end of that.
Yeah, I had no idea what was going on.
It's on Netflix.
We drank so much red wine.
Yeah.
So that is The Exorcist 3 for today's episode of McMuscles Midnight Massacre. Hope you enjoyed it, and we'll be back again tomorrow with
this demon doesn't get us.
If we don't have an episode tomorrow, that means we dead.